trying to long murder a police officer for a long, long time. So I'm in an adjustment period right now. We're going to try and see if the sound works. If it doesn't work, we'll all go with the changes. But if it does, great. Let's see. I take it you guys can't hear anything, right?
No, I can't hear.
Okay. Well, it's as high as it's going to go. So we're going to roll with the punch, guys. There's a lot of stuff we're going to do because we're not doing the stuff that I thought we were going to do. Okay. The title of today's lecture: Finding Your Bono Voce on Cross in the Art and Science of Impeachment, or Come si mangia bene in processo, how you eat well during trial. And you'll see why that's relevant. This was in reference to what Bono said at the NAACP Awards dinner. Did anybody see that speech? YouTube it, baby. It is unbelievable. I have Lisa Wayne to thank for turning me on to that speech. It was an amazing speech. The first 3 or 4 minutes are sort of awkward, and then he finds his voice and he goes to town. You have to see it. It is an unbelievable speech. The last 2 minutes of it. It is about being, and I'm not a religious person. I'm from San Francisco, so I always say that, and I always say I'm spiritual, because we have to say that in San Francisco. I'm not a religious person. I talk a lot about God. God is something, it's important to him, but the tone of it, whether you're religious or not, is unbelievable. It's about being with the poor. And that is the spirit that I hope will animate the talk I'm giving today. Finding your voice, which means finding the right humanity in impeachment. We have a tendency, and I'll talk about it, to be harsh and rough in impeachment. The art and science of impeachment, because I'm one of the guys who believes more towards the science than it is towards the art. That is teachable and achievable rather than just being a genius. I want to talk about how great my art is, because I think it's about technique. Technique liberates you to be who you are. It's teachable and achievable by all of us. And come si mangia bene in processo, because I'm part Italian, and when we really let go and really enjoy ourselves is when we're eating. And that's the way I like to think about impeachment. And that you give yourself that moment where you're just letting go, mangia bene in that moment. Don't speed through it, enjoy it, take your time. So, why do we impeach? To have a sense of power over another human being? Yes, of course. But that's not the primary objective. If you do that, you're losing a lot. Is it to demonstrate our excellent trial skills to any court TV agents who might be sitting in the gallery? That is a primary motivating factor for many people. Is it to demonstrate our excellent trial skills as an undying tribute to our NCDC faculty, in particular our impeachment lecture? Yes, that's the reason we do it. Now, of course, now you guys heard Terry McCarthy this morning, so you know that the reason you do it, keep your eyes on the prize, is because you want to further your theory of the case. Did you folks talk about theory of the case this morning? What a theory of the case is? How many folks talked?
My group better say yes.
Okay. You guys talk about theory of the case this morning? Theory of the case. A story of innocence. I hear some more murmurings out there. Sounds like some people didn't, so we'll talk about it a little bit. Theory of the case is a story of innocence. Some people would say not guilt as opposed to innocence. Consistent with the facts beyond change in the law. This is what's going to guide you through the maze of trial. It's your magnetic true north. It gets you to the end of the trial and the win. That's your theory of the case. You've got other things, right? Called themes. The recurring motifs, emotional ideas, phrases that support your theory of the case. On the prosecution side in the Scott Peterson case, for example, an adulterer is a liar. On the other side, an adulterer is not a murderer. Those are themes. They support the theory of the case from either side. And when you've got a clear theory and a clear theme, and you've got a witness in it that you want to impeach on cross, you have a theory of the witness. You have a conscious plan to examine that witness, including tone, the structure, and the content as well. You have to have these things absolutely clearly known before you begin a cross, before you begin to think about impeachment. Because if you do that, then you end up with something like this. Instead of the normal verdict form, you get read the jury and you file a caption case, find your client saying here, not guilty of any and all past, present, future charges, and hereby, on behalf of all good people everywhere, stand in a say I've had a good day. Now, I've talked a little bit about this is more science than art. I want to make a second confession, and that is the best answer I ever got on impeachment on cross, because I have impeachment witnesses. Impeachment on cross is the following answer. And this was Joe Calabrese, who had been kicked out of the Clark County, Nevada Sheriff's Office in 1963 for corruption. Kicked out in 63 from Vegas for corruption. His answer was, "Hey, Mr. Sabelli, I have always claimed to have 2 birthdays." Now, the confession I want to make is that my question was bumbling and awkward, but the material was so good that he gave it to me. So even when your science isn't perfect, don't be afraid. When I stress the science, I'm not saying you got to be perfect before you stand up. None of us is perfect. All right. So when we talk about doing impeachment and further our theory of the case, it's a positive thing. It is not impeachment as a way to tear people apart. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do cross by 1,000 cuts, and you say that because you're aiming at the end of the case to be able to look that jury in the eye and say, "Hey, this guy, you can't believe anything he says. Nothing at all." But you have to have a truth that you're standing for. The truth in that case would be, this man is a liar. The truth is, there was a liar. But you might have a truth you stand for. The car was red, not blue. When you're doing impeachment, don't forget, you are aiming to establish a truth. It's not just about tearing down the other side. It's not just about getting up and ripping them apart. It's about establishing something affirmatively. Because cynicism breeds contempt. If you're cynical and attack just to attack, the jury may have contempt for you. If you're sincere, if you stand for something, the jury will respect you. Be faithful to your theory of the case, and impeachment, and as Monty Python says, be cruel but fair. Have something in mind. If you're going to attack, you're going to tear apart, do it fairly. You have a power as a lawyer, and use that power with responsibility. So what are we going to do today? We're going to focus today on prior inconsistent statements during cross, because that's what you're going to be doing. We're going to talk about technique, the 3 easy steps. We're going to be wrapping that section up with a practical bit of philosophy. We're going to be skipping over lots of interesting YouTube videos that you guys can see. And if we have time, I'm going to talk about integrating all of the impeachment execution into trial. We may have time because we don't have the videos. The importance of technique. You want to hear the music? Can you hear it? A little bit. Is this art or is it technique? Well, when you're done with it, it's beautiful art. I mean, anything more beautiful than man. I go every year as many times as I could go. But you break it down, and it's technique. And that's what I want to talk about today. How you go backwards from the art down into technique, because it's very possible in impeachment. It's a process of liberating yourself to break down into simple movements. Every movement they do is a simple movement. In fact, I once saw, you guys ever heard the dancer Bill Jones? You ever hear him? Wonderful dancer. He once did a whole piece in San Francisco, which he talked every movement through. It was amazing. It was amazing because he was showing the simplicity of dance. So what are the steps of impeachment? That's a mess of an end up, by the way. All right, first of all, when you impeach, do you let go of the fundamentals that Terry McCarthy taught you about this morning? No, you don't. You're still holding on to the same fundamentals that you learned about this morning. The 3 basic rules of cross. Short leading questions. 1 new fact per question. Always from the general to the specific. And I'll be incorporating that as I use some examples of impeachment. The whole purpose here, guys, is when you stand up, is to liberate yourself, to be yourself, and to be in the moment. It's what Rochelle is going to talk about in part, about the grifter cross, giving yourself that freedom to be grifted, right? And Colette's going to talk about this afternoon, telling the story, storyboarding the story. What we want to do is adhere to these basic rules not because the rules and we prove to everybody else in the courtroom there to support us that we're great, but because it liberates us to be in the moment. What are the 3 easy steps of impeaching with the prior and consistent statement? RAC. Recommit the witness to direct, credit the prior statement, and confront the witness with the prior. And as you work through those examples, even if you've done 30, 40, 50 trials, as you work through the examples over the next 2 days in this magical kingdom where nobody goes to jail, as David Lewis said, as you work through the examples, go over the top, as actors say. Go over the top and make sure you're getting the steps down perfectly. And then you can start to play with them a little bit as you get more and more comfortable, even if you have boatloads of experience. So let's start with the first step. Recommitting. What you can call the moral, and I may have spelled jiu-jitsu wrong. Did I spell it wrong? Did I spell it right or wrong? That's wrong. Okay, good. All right, well, I'm not perfect. I knew I was spelling it wrong every time I didn't do it. Recommit, first step. It's the moral jiu-jitsu. Why do I say it's moral jiu-jitsu? Because the witness has just testified about something on the stand. The witness has said, for example, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, the witness has said, for example, it's a police officer. And the police report says one thing. It says the gun was lying next to the suspect when I arrived. But the police officer on the stand says the gun was in the white male's hand when I arrived. Okay? Is that clear, the difference between the two? In the report, the gun is lying next to the man on the ground. On the stand, the cop says it's in his hand. The first step is we recommit the cop to what he said on the stand. You can recreate that moment. Officer, did I hear you right a few minutes ago when on direct examination you told this jury that the gun was in my client's hand? I wouldn't use it with my client, I use my client's name. You recreate that moment, you recommit him to what he just said on direct. So there's no wiggle room. You can't later say, hey, I didn't really say that on direct. When you do that, you're clear about what your view is, right? Because we're standing for the truth. The truth is the gun was not in our client's hand. The truth was it was laying on the ground. We're clear about that in our minds. That's our theory of the witness, because it fits with our theory of the case. Our client wasn't holding the gun because he's not the guy who fired it. So we make it clear to the jury. You guys are the jury. Am I making it clear to the jury this way, that I don't believe what he said? Officer, the gun was in the white male's hand. That's not very clear, right, in my view, right? Officer, are you telling this jury today that when you arrived, the gun was in Mr. Smith's hand? Inject a degree of skepticism or distance so that when you recommit the officer or the witness to their direct testimony, that jury understands you don't believe it. You're not simply retreading or going over what the prosecution said. You're imposing a distance. Officer, today's truth is that the gun was in Mr. Fratelli's hand. Officer, you want this jury to believe, and I think you said this on direct, that the gun was in Officer Fratelli's hand? Use your tone, your body language, your diction to make it clear to the jury that when you're recommitting, you're recommitting the officer or the witness to what they said on direct, not that you believe it. Does that make sense? Is that pretty clear? Anybody sort of have some fuzziness about that? Now's the time that, if you've got any fuzziness, let's throw it out there. This probably means 10 other people do as well. Is that pretty clear? Okay. Tone, body language, and diction. Use the exact words or a very fair summary or suffer. Because if you don't use the exact words or a very fair summary, you give them lots of wiggle room and you deflated your impeachment. Posner and Dodd in their book give lots of civil examples. They give an example of an NFL player who on the stand claims that 2 people were in the room when he signed his first NFL contract. It's a contract. And the sequence that they describe is something like the following. On the recommit, Mr. Fratelli, the NFL player, you told this jury that you would never forget the moment you signed that first NFL contract. That must have been an extremely important moment in your life. As you told us on direct, you grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, like Keith Belzer, dreaming of being in the NFL. This moment must have been the culmination of years, and by the way, Keith was a football player. This must have been the culmination of years and years of practice and hard work. You build that moment up so that the jury understands that this guy's claiming that something is absolutely clear in his life. Why are you building that up? Seems counterproductive, doesn't it, in a way, because you're sort of deepening the man's attachment to that memory. You do it because you're going to flip it, because you already have in your hip pocket the prior inconsistent statement. And the more the witness claims that he remembers something with clarity right now, when you've got a real contradiction, the more energy there is in the flip. And that is what jiu-jitsu, spelled correctly, is about. So don't be afraid. Do not hedge. You're going to find yourself when you first do impeachment, hedging in that first piece. Because you're kind of afraid, as if you're helping the prosecution. You go over the top on this thing because you're making it clear to the jury that this person claims to have a crystal clear memory of a moment when they can't, because they've said something in direct contradiction. We'll work through some examples. This is one we worked through a little bit before. How about an ID example? The witness in the first interview, let's say it's an assault case, says nothing about a tattoo. She's interviewed a day later, or right afterward, and a day later, go over that form, that has, any scars, tattoos, everything like that. And she doesn't say anything about a tattoo. But on direct, she says, I'll never forget the way that hula girl moved when his arm moved. Right? On direct, she's claiming a direct memory of a hula girl in somebody's form. Right? So how could we recommit this witness? They've just finished testifying. They've said they're never going to forget the hula girl. Your client has a hula girl. So your theory of the case is this witness never saw a hula girl tattoo, right? That's your theory of the case. That's your theory of this witness, right? Because if the jury believes that the witness saw a hula girl on the assailant's arm, you're dead. All right? So how do we recommit her to this statement on direct? Somebody want to throw it in? Over here from the right. How do we recommit it? Left side shows you you're better. You've been listening for a while. How do we recommit it? To show that jury that we don't believe it, but we want to be clear that that's what you said on direct. Somebody want to take a stab at it?
No, we want you to do it. I'm mortified that you're asking us.
Go ahead.
Officer, you just testified on direct that you'll never forget the way that hula girl moved when it was on you.
Officer, you just testified on direct. I started the gym like at midnight last night, right? Is that you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good. Got to be at the gym at midnight, and then you're much better at cross. All right. So, you said, officer. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Officer, you just testified on direct that you'll never forget the way that hula girl moved when it was on you.
Okay. So that imparts to the jury that recommits the officer to what he said. Does it give the jury the impression? What's your name?
Leo.
That Leo doesn't believe it? All right, can we go over the top? Leo, do you know who Andrew Dice Clay is? I can't stand him.
God.
How would Andrew Dice Clay do it? Officer, are you telling us today that, or Mrs. whatever, let's call her Mrs. Jones. Ms. Jones, are you telling us today that you will never forget the way that hula girl moved? Right? The tone, you want to deepen, you want to make it clear that you don't believe what the witness just said. Thank you very much, Lee, for being a volunteer. Anybody else have a different way to do it?
Officer, you testified that you saw the hula girl move. That you saw the way the hula girl moved when the arm moved.
Okay. Good, so we're recommitting. And what I want to encourage all of you guys to do is to take it that next actually step, go over the top, and recommit in a way that the jury understands you don't believe it. It's almost as if the first words you say are, I don't believe you, but. Just think that, that's the mantra in your head. It's going to be, I don't believe you, but. I don't believe you, but. You told this jury that you saw a hula girl on the assailant's arm. That's what's got to be in your mind. The phrase, I don't believe you, but. That's the tone, the diction, and the body language. Okay? And so you'll be working through examples, through problems this afternoon that will help you do that. But go over the top. Don't hold back on it. This is not about moderation. We're not living in Victorian England here. You guys are defense lawyers. You're behind the eight ball most of the time. Go way over the top, and that will allow you to pull it back when you need to. Learn the skill, expand yourselves, push the envelope. Or go back and live in Victorian England if you guys want to do that. Okay, good. We have somebody here who's anticipating the next step we're going to. Did everyone hear what you said?
No.
All right. You want to say it out loud?
I think I would, just based on the appearance of the witness, maybe their age, something about them, if it would indicate to me that they don't like tattoos, the reason why that their attention is drawn to.
Okay, so what's your name? What Lisa has just told us is we want to understand the tattoo from the witness's point of view. All right? We've already found a way to establish what the witness has said on direct. But we know that the witness has said something in direct contradiction. In the case we're looking at now, silence about a tattoo. So we know there's a contradiction there. Nothing about a tattoo? Boy, I remember that tattoo. The gun was on the ground, the gun was in his hand. So now what we want to do, because we're faithful to our truth, our theory of the case, our substance, is we want to show the jury that there was a prior statement and that that prior statement was believable. That that's what we want to be the truth in their minds. And so what Lisa's helping us with is getting inside the mind of that witness to understand why that witness would have noticed a tattoo had there been one. Right? That's what you're after. This is the second step. It is called accrediting. Yes?
But how does that fit with your skepticism of the moment before?
It fits very well with that skepticism.
How can you affirm and discredit?
Because I'm affirming and recommitting to the statement on direct. And now I'm going to accredit the prior statement. I recommit the witness to what the witness said on direct. The car was red. But I know the day of the accident, he was interviewed by somebody who said the car was blue. My theory is the car was blue. The car was blue, say to my client. Okay? So I recommit him to the car was red on direct because that's what he said. And I'm now going to credit the prior state. David?
You anchored the tone to the time
Yes.
and prove the fact. You don't anchor the tone to the fact and prove the time. That's, I think, where we are.
There are two statements. Okay? The first statement is the one that was made on direct, that we're anchoring, we're skeptical about. And there's the prior statement that we believe in, that we're not skeptical about. And so our tone will change. When we use a skeptical tone, a distant tone from the direct testimony, we are now going to use an unskeptical tone or a tone of affirmation with respect to the prior statement. So the steps, let me give a general outline, and then I'll go back into the second step. You're going to have an example, and you're going to have, let's say the car was blue, red rather, on direct. And the prior statement was the car was blue. You recommit. You're telling this jury today, sir, that the car was red. Did I get that right? Yes. That's today's truth. Now I want to take you back to the day of the accident. This is the second step, the accrediting. Here you're going to build up all of the reasons that witness had the opportunity and motive to have seen the color of the car and tell it right to our investigator. And then you're going to confront with one statement versus the other. And we'll talk about exactly how to do those things. But now we're on the second step. We've recommitted him What's your name?
Emma.
Emma?
Emma.
Emo. We've recommitted with skepticism to the statement that the car was red. Hey, we don't believe that statement. Now we're going to take the jury back in time to a moment when this person really saw what happened and told it right away because the car was blue. I have a picture of Robert Capa, who was the first real war photographer, a very interesting guy, because his motto was, if the pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. In fact, he ended up dying by stepping on a landmine in Vietnam. Very interesting guy, made his break filming in World War II and ended up dying in Vietnam. What you do is you get into it from the witness's point of view. You understand the witness's motive and opportunity to have gotten it right the first time. So you take them back into that moment, be as real as you can, right? The day of the accident, Ms. Emo, you were sitting at home.
Yes.
You heard a knock on the door. You had seen an accident a few hours before. You had had time to go home. You had been home 3 or 4 hours by the time you heard this knock. You had been sitting at your kitchen table. Let's assume we know these things, because we're not going to ask things we don't know. You had had a cup of tea. You had settled down. Now, I use the term settled, which is relative. I ordinarily wouldn't do that unless I knew she had committed herself to that before. You had settled down. You heard the knock on the door. You opened the door. A man was there. He identified himself. He said he was an investigator working for one of the 2 people involved in the accident. He asked you if you could come in. You thought about it. You knew you could say no, and yet you let him in. You sat at the table with him. He asked you some questions. You gave him answers. You knew somebody had been badly hurt. You wanted to help. You had seen the accident. Okay. We can do this for a long time. I don't want to do the things you're going to be doing step by step. What we do is you take that journey right back in that moment. You don't ask some simple question like, you had the opportunity and the motive to tell the truth the first time, right? Because that's not being real. That's not being visual and oral, right? Most jurors aren't all verbal like we are. We don't have 12 people just like us in the jury box. Jurors are all sorts of different kinds of people. Some are very visually minded, more than we are, right? And so if you can take them back in that moment where Ms. Emo decides, I don't know your last name, sorry. What's your last name? Ulrich. Ms. Ulrich says, you know what? I've seen this accident. I care. I'm a good person. I want to help. I'm ready to help now because I've been settled down. I know I don't have to talk to this man. Here's what I saw. I saw the car was blue. And then she's, they put the statement in front of her. She looks it over, makes little corrections, or better yet, she makes a little correction on spelling, and then she signs it, right? You can take the jury back into that moment. Rather than talking at the level of generality, you take the jury back in the moment where Ms. Ulrich says, come on in, let me tell you what I saw. Here's exactly what I saw. It's fresh on my mind. Where she had the opportunity and motive to get it right. Then you laid the groundwork. You established the foundation for why the first statement, the prior inconsistent statement, the one you believe in, why that statement is the truth. Right? So the camera is here. Robert Capa and the camera are here because you are trying to see it like a director sees it from the point of view of the witness. Understand the witness's point of view. Why she saw it. Why she wanted to help. Why she had every motive and opportunity to get it right. And to close this is the workhorse of impeachment. During this piece of impeachment, the second step, the imperative step, what you are doing is you are making the jury understand all these things, and you're going one by one through all the possible escape hatches this witness has. I was tired. I didn't know what he was asking. I needed to get to a doctor's appointment. I just wanted to get him out of the house. He intimidated. Whatever the possible reasons are that she could now say, hey, I was wrong before, I'm right now. You have got to close them off here. Because if you leave any escape hatch open, then you're going to get killed either when you confront the prior inconsistent statement or when the prosecutor gets up on the redirect. You are closing off all the escape hatches. You imagine all the escape hatches, script them out in your head so that you can understand during this step how to close them off. Who are the world's greatest experts in escaping a prior inconsistent statement? Officers. So if you've been a PD, if you've been a criminal defense lawyer for a while, you know it. You know what their escape hatches are. And you've got to understand them. Sometimes they're jurisdiction by jurisdiction. There's some peculiarities in every place. But you've got to understand what are the ways that they're going to get out of this. Right? Who does a good cop here? Who does a good cop here? Let's go back to the example of the cop with a gun. What are the ways the cop can get out of the gun? Remember, the example is, police report says the gun was lying on the ground, the cop on direct says the gun is in the client's hand. How is the cop going to get out?
You threw it back.
Okay, but in terms of what he saw when he arrived, the cop said in the report, when I arrived, I saw the gun on the ground. And on direct, he says, when I arrived, I saw the gun in the client's hand.
When I arrived there, Mr. Defense Lawyer, yeah, it was lying on the ground in his hand.
Okay, good. That's excellent. Excellent. What else? That's one.
Just dropped it there.
What?
He had just dropped it there.
Okay. Okay, you just dropped it there. What else?
You know, I do my best to get this right because it's really important. But I do so many of these cases, and sometimes when I take these notes, they might not be quite accurate, but I remember today, and I have it in my mind what happened.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Good. That's one I've heard a lot. What else?
This is just a summary of what happened.
Good. Good. Sorry? Oh, we could deny that that's his statement, in which case it's not prior. It's not his statement, so we're in a little different territory. Good. What else? Cops will always have ways to try to explain it. And what you have to do is go through the process, right? Go through the process of closing these escape hatches before you get to confrontation, before you pull the prior inconsistent statement out of your pocket. Because if you don't do that, you're going to pop up with an escape hatch. You're going to say, here's the prior inconsistent statement, and you're going to read it, and you're going to look at the jury like Perry Mason or some, use your best baritone like you just wanted. They're going to say, oh, well, you know. And then they're going to come out with an explanation. So what you've got to do, folks, is in this middle step, this is the bulk, this is the workhorse, this is the real meat of impeachment with the prior inconsistent statement. The accrediting step, the second step. Get into that witness's viewpoint. See it from the witness's viewpoint. Make sure the jury understands. Officer, after you arrested my client, you went back to 850 Bryant Street. Is that right? You have an office there. You have a computer there. You write your reports on that computer. Then you can go through the training, the report writing training litany. That would probably be appropriate. We're not going to take the time to do that now. And once you've written that report, of course, you know that in San Francisco, you can always write a supplemental report. Right? You're closing off because they might say sometime later, I remember, wait a minute, I got that wrong. Well, if they got it wrong, they didn't correct it. Right? You take that jury not back to this concept of, hey, officer, you know how important it is to write reports. You know how important it is to get things right. You know how important it is to be accurate. All those are relative terms, are vague, they're fuzzy, and they don't belong to the jury. But if you get that officer sitting in his office, his cubicle, with a computer in front of him, with the screen open, with a field that says firearm location, and making the choice to write lying on the ground, and then that officer in the next 6 months passing up every opportunity to supplement that report or tell anybody else in any other way, well, you've got that jury to understand that this officer could not have made a mistake back then. But you have got to do the work of imagining all of these escape hatches and scripting them. Because if you don't do that, you're going to, when it comes time to confront with the prior inconsistent statement, you're going to be surprised when something pops out. Experts are the other folks who do that, right? You've got a prior consistent statement, you've got a transcript from a doctor from a previous trial, cause of death sort of thing. Well, they are experts at escape hatches. And if you want to impeach with a prior consistent statement with a cop or an expert, you've got to put all the work into the second step. We have a time check because I don't know what to do. Got a little bit more, we've got more to go, we're starting late. It's, this is Robert Castle's most famous picture. If you get the moment, what I'm trying to stress here is the importance of the moment, not of generalities, how important it is to write a report, but the moment of making the choice to put gun on the ground. Get into the moment, get into the witness's point of view in that moment, capture that moment, explore all the possible explanations, close them all, add in the script. And if you want to think about it in terms of M&M, please think about it in terms of M&M. The moment is what matters. So now we've done recommit, is the skeptical level, I said on direct. We've now accredited the circumstances of the prior consistent statements. Why that prior statement, the car was red, the gun was on the ground, silence about a tattoo. Why that was really done in the right circumstances. Why the witness had the opportunity and the motive. And now we're going to, as I promised, we get to the manja part, the manja part. This is the part where you have fun. Does anybody remember where manja comes from, by the way? There was an old commercial, but that is, for me, when I grew up, I used to have 3 dinners a night with my 2 buddies, Roger Bale and Vince Pontarelli. And the third dinner was, the second dinner was the best dinner. That was Mrs. Pontarelli's house, Joanna Pontarelli. We come in, she was Sicilian, so she did everything with the red sauce. And the first thing we did when we came in, she'd give us a red shirt piece. So we would just get as dirty as we wanted. She would say, manja, get dirty, doesn't matter. This is the manja part. You've done your work, you've been committed, you've accredited, you've spent a lot of time, you've closed up every escape hatch, and now you have that prior inconsistent statement in your hand on videotape. What do? You walk up to that witness and say, do you remember, sir? You start out saying, do you remember? Or would it refresh your recollection? Why not?
No.
What's that?
It'll let them out. They'll say, oh, no, I don't remember.
Right.
You're asking them to get out from under.
That's right. It completely deflates, and it gives them an opportunity to look at it, see the circumstances of the whole thing, and explain it. Do not surrender, and this is the word I chose carefully, an opportunity to explain. You keep that statement in your hand. You're the one who reads it. You're the one who presses the play button. What you say is that your voice, sir? Were you asked the following question? Did you give the following answer? You don't put that statement in their hands so that they can use inflection and tone and body language to change its meaning. You're in control. Your control involves taking that and portraying it to the jury the way you want it to be portrayed. Don't surrender that opportunity. You maintain control and read. This is the moment where you go slow and you enjoy it. You manja. You enjoy this moment. You don't rush through it to get to the other side. You don't rush through it to get to the point where you've thrown it down there. You never say to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to get that statement out because I'm really going to bring it home and close it. Right? That's the easy way out, because the point is, if you don't swing into that point, in that moment of cross, the jury is not going to buy it and close it. If you don't drive it home in that moment of cross, if you don't tell the story of the untruth or the prior truth in cross, it's too late to close it. You can't get the jury to believe something in closing that they didn't live in cross. And what better way, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, what better way as opposed to saying, hey, do you remember he made a statement that was different before about the car being blue? You know, that's sort of weak. But you can take it back. Folks, we were all here. And Mr. Miller was sitting in this chair, the witness stand. And I was standing here. And do you remember? And you be judges yourselves about this, folks. Do you remember the look on his face when I pulled that report out? If you can get the jury to relive that moment, in psychological terms, shared experiences are much more powerful much more powerful than any other experiences. We share an experience, and I refer back to it, it's power. So if you can do that confrontation the right way with all the power and drama that you have in your repertoire, you can do it during cross, and you can drive it home and close it. Let's take a step back. I want to give you some guideposts for how you use this. It's a powerful weapon. You're going to have many opportunities to impeach. Many opportunities to impeach. And the question is, how do you do it and when do you do it? First of all, be selective. Many things at first appear to be contradictions, which are not. So as you go through the discovery, you go through the investigation, start to flag things. Maybe they're contradictions, maybe they're not. JPP, jurors punish pettiness. If something's not a contradiction, not a true contradiction, be very aware of it. There's no worse feeling than being up there and kind of having a half contradiction and feeling like you're trying to catch somebody in something, and then you realize it ain't really a contradiction. You feel like it. Don't you? A lot of people are not even having feel like it, right? You don't look good. You're not modeling the kind of empathy and power and truth that you want to model. Be prepared. You have to have things. Did you talk this morning about how you prepare a cross? You know, references to documents, having it all down so you don't have to be fumbling through notes. This is not a lecture intended to cover how you prepare for a cross generally, but you have to have a system that allows you to reference documents right away, so you're not looking through a binder trying to find where the contradiction is, you're half aware of what the statement is. You have to have the feeling that when you want to get it, it's just like starting a lecture. You want to have the feeling that you want to press the sound button and it's going to work, right? Okay, well if it doesn't work, you lose a little bit, right? I can recover because you guys are a sympathetic audience and you guys are great. You guys are here to learn. But a jury's not a sympathetic audience. They're to learn, right? Not necessarily. So for you to have the kind of confidence and the internal swagger that you want to have, be prepared. Have everything written down that you need to refer to. Know your objective. We're going to talk about this now in a second. What precisely your objective is. Because if you know your objective, you know the most important thing, when to sit your butt down. Right? Not to ruin everything you've done by asking another question. You know when to sit your butt down. And being in the moment. That's the most basic guidepost I want to give you. This is great. This is stuff that trials and drama are made of. You see it on Law and Order all the time. If you don't enjoy these moments, you're losing out a lot of them. I did this almost 5.5, 6 month trial, and we did impeaching. It was so much fun. You know, every time it's more fun than the last, right? Don't pass up those opportunities. Put on that red shirt. Let that red sauce fly all over you. Now I said that one of the guideposts was being clear, knowing your objective, knowing when to sit your butt down. And I want to tell you exactly what that means. Did you guys do this morning? Remember we talked about the 3 rules of cross, short leading questions, 1 new fact per question, from the general to the specific. When you do a cross, you want to build the general area down to the specific point. You're a police officer. As a police officer, you have training. One of the things you're trained to do is write a report. You're trained to write a report, and then you go because it's all the reasons it's important. You go down, and your final objective is to show that they know how to write a report, right? So this represents a chapter in your cross, maybe report writing, maybe an opportunity to see the color of the car, maybe an opportunity to see where the gun was, and you get down to this point. Down here is the conclusion you want to get to. It's what a lot of people refer to as the so question, right? To condense and abbreviate all the steps with respect to the red car, the blue car example. First step, skepticism. You tell the jury today's truth is the car was red. And you accredit. The day of the accident, you met an investigator, you had every opportunity, every motive, you sat down at the kitchen table, you had a cup of tea, you guys discovered you were classmates, and you were really good friends for many, many years, and just fallen out of touch, you totally, all the things that make that report writing experience for the investigator and the person correct, the reason why she signed a statement that said the car was blue, and that's correct. You've done all that, You're down here at the point of confronting. You confront her with her statement that the car was blue, you put it in front of her. Those are your words. You wrote the car was blue. Is that correct, ma'am? Yes, it is. So is the next question, so, were you right today or were you right back then? So, were you lying then or were you lying today, right? That's the so question you never ask. Why? Because that's your theory of the case. What you're doing, and you never want to do, is take your theory of the case and put it in the hands of a witness and say, hey, here's my theory of the case. Tell me what you think about it. Especially if you've got a cop, or an expert, or a savvy witness. What you do is you cut it off. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get the writing on top of this. I made it look kind of cool. But try to. Here's the confrontation. That is where you stop. You don't go to the explanation to the so question. You stop one short. You don't get to the bottom of that period. When do you get to the bottom of that period? In closing. That's exactly right. That's when you get to the bottom of the period. Because this last piece, that she was wrong today, and she was right back there, that's the piece that you don't want to put in the hands of the witness. That's the piece you keep for yourself. That's what we mean when we apply this idea of going from the general to the specific to impeachment. When you write out that paragraph, as I said, go over the top when you first start doing this. When you write out this pyramid, rather, and you've got this question again, draw a line right there and say to yourself, I'm not going to ask that question. And then you'll know in your mind, when you hit that point, when you've done the confrontation, you sit your butt down. There's nothing else to do. Know your objective. When you're clear and you know your objective, you know what you want. Well, I was going to show you Charles Lawton having a good time doing this with Marlene Deacon. You guys see the witness for the prosecution? Well, very good. It's a great trial sequence, and it's a lot of fun. We are not going to do that today. And then I wanted to show you, I wanted to ask you guys to join me in a reverie. And I don't know if it's going to work, because we don't have sound. But I want you to imagine a world in which everybody knew how to impeach. You guys recognize this man? Yeah. You recognize that guy? All right. Well, let's see if you can hear it. Can anybody hear this? We're going to stop it because people in the back can't hear. But this is Dick Cheney on Iraq in 1994. Okay? This is Dick Cheney in Iraq in 1994. And Iraq in 1994. What he says in 1994 is, we couldn't go all the way to Baghdad because it would have been a quagmire. We didn't have anybody else supporting us. The Arab states were behind us, not enough European states were behind us. And yes, while people have praised us, says Cheney in 1994, for having only lost 146 American lives, 146 American lives was not a cheap war for those 146 families. So I wanted to have a little imagination, a reverie about a world in which we all knew how to impeach. If only 3 senators knew how to impeach correctly, and Dick Cheney deigned to go down to Capitol Hill, what a better world it would be. So don't give up on impeachment, folks. It can do a lot for us. All right, we started about 20 minutes late, so I'm going to take about 5 or 6 more minutes to give you a sense of where we fit all this in to our problem. I've touched a little bit upon the idea that when you impeach, you have a power and a responsibility. You're tearing somebody else, somebody to understand. Maybe they're lying, maybe they're not lying, maybe they're just mistaken. Maybe they're lying because they have a reason that is a humane and sympathetic reason to lie. Choose your tone very carefully. You need to model the empathy that you want the jury to show towards your client. If you're a harsh, unforgiving person, don't forget that jury is initially going to try to cut every break they can for a witness, right? Cops, particular experts, right? Sometimes that varies jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But don't assume that you can come in using the harsh tone that we like to use. What's the favorite speed, the favorite emotion for us public defender types? Self-righteousness, anger and brimstone. We do that one speed extremely well. And when I first went into private practice, I was in private practice 3 years between the FPD and the director of training in the state office. I imagine sitting down with your clients and saying to them, you know what, I'd like to do your case, but if your case involves any emotion besides self-righteous anger, I just can't do it. So I'm really good at that one emotion, but I'm not good at the other emotions. What I'm saying to you folks is develop the ability to use a range of emotions, including understanding, sympathy, and empathy for the people who are you're impeaching. How do you sequence an impeachment within a cross? You've got a harsh, strong piece of cross. You come out of it straight out of the gate, maybe. Okay, that's got to be a choice, because once you do that, you come out with a strong impeachment in the beginning, you're going to create, or you're going to bring to the fore an adversity that may make it difficult for you to get undisputed points later in the cross. So make an informed choice about that. Do I want to start with that, or do I want to fit the impeachment later? Does the impeachment on this point allow me then to undermine other things this witness has to say? Make a choice. If you put it up front, it has an effect on your relationship with the witness, which might be positive or negative. It has an effect on the way you're able to deal with the rest of it. Before trial, you have the ability not only to identify opportunities for impeachment, but reading the discovery and the reports carefully that your investigator does. But you can create opportunities for impeachment. This is the area that I think we have almost the greatest effect in terms of helping our client. Getting discovery and doing investigation and doing creative motions practice. How many times do you need to ask for discovery? It's limitless. You've got to ask again, ask for it on the record, ask for it in writing, prior statements of this person in this place, prior statements of this person in that place. Do it so you've got a record of it. Be general and also be very specific about what matters. When you do that, your bank of possible impeachment is multiplied. Get witnesses on the stand before trial. The more times you get them on the stand before trial, and you're not quite prepared, the more transcripts you have, the more opportunities you have to nail them in. 6 months before trial on an ID hearing, 6 months before trial on some other type of hearing, they're not going to be exactly in sync with their theory of prosecution. They're going to say things you can use at trial. And this is the area that I work hardest in. Creating motions before trial, getting people on the stand. And there's not a day that goes by when I'm not filing a motion that says the following words: confrontation clause, due process clause, effective assistance clause. Use those, particularly the confrontation clause after Crawford. It's vigorous and it's alive, and it can get you hearings that we weren't getting before. The more hearings you have, the more impeachment you have. Voir dire. You want to integrate your impeachment into voir dire, into opening, and into cross, and into closing. What's missing? Direct. That's right. Listen to the director. As director of training, I don't know how many times I second chaired some young lawyers in the first trial, and they were not listening to the direct. And there were gems of inconsistencies dropping down that you could not have identified before trial, because there was no contradiction before trial. And on the stand, contradictions dropped out in direct. Listen to that direct, please. Voir dire. Do you let the jury know somehow, without referring to specific facts, that you're doing impeachment? Maybe. Maybe. If impeachment and discrediting a witness or crediting a require a consistent statement is important to you, you've got to build it into your voir dire. If it's an essential part of your case, build it into your voir dire. Ain't many judges that are going to let you be fact specific. But you've got to think, hey, what kind of juror is going to buy into this inconsistency, and what kind of juror isn't? And is that second category juror you want to get rid of? Opening. Do you refer to an impeachment that you're going to do an opening? Do you? Well, if you do, you're certainly alerting the prosecution of what you're going to do. So one rule of thumb is, you don't do it if they can correct it before the witness is on direct. If you leak it during your opening, hey, I'm going to impeach this guy in this way, right? And they can clean it up, well, you've just done them a favor. On the other hand, if they can't clean it up, you're already letting the jury know that this witness is not somebody who should be believed fully. The prosecution gets up and talks about a woman who saw a tattoo. You've got her locked in. In fact, she didn't say it was a tattoo before. Her credibility's up really high when the prosecution sits down after their opening. And then you get up and you let the jury know about the absence of a tattoo, 3 prior interviews in very specific forms. Her credibility is down even before she takes the stand. So be careful if you do that. You don't want to give them a chance to clean up. In closing, if you've done a great job in impeachment, if you haven't done it on cross, it's too late to do it all now. But if you've done a great job on cross, how do you clean it up? How do you bring it home? You link them to instructions. There are going to be some specific instructions you have about witness credibility. You lie one time, you lie a lot. What are the factors that go into credibility? All those things. Link your impeachment directly to instructions that jurors like to hear about instructions. Link to stories. Stories about people getting things wrong, or lying, or being mistaken. And relive that moment. Folks, do you remember when I read that report to Officer Miller, and he had to admit to you that he saw that gun on the ground. Relive that moment. Take them back to that shared experience. The jury remembers exactly what that's about. Trigger that, because what you're doing is you're arming your jurors with the best arguments they have to win, including visual arguments. Remember that moment, not just ideas, but moments, visualizations. Let's see if you can hear this. I used to play soccer. I got to work it in somehow. My apologies to those people who don't like sports. But I chose this, and I chose a piece of Alvin Ailey, because my view is that in the balance between art or science, genius or pure technique, there are some outstanding individuals. Some of them are in the room with you right now, in the back of the room. Some of you are probably up here, and I don't know you yet, who have an art and a gift that is unbelievable. But for the rest of us, it's about technique, it's about science, it's about practice. None of these guys grew up being able to do that. They work hours and hours on every little step, every little piece of the technique. And that's all you have to do to cross well, to impeach well, and fundamentally, any given trial, to liberate yourself to be the best persuader. None of these guys is thinking about performing. They're all going high speed and they have a simple task ahead of them. Get the ball over the defender's foot. Get the ball behind the defender. That's what soccer players are thinking. And that's what you guys need to do when you're doing the impeachment and cross. Not thinking about the next book contract or the court TV, but thinking just about how do I complete these 3 simple steps. Because when the goal is that short term and that clear and that focused, you can do it. So I'm sorry for having gone over. We started late. I think I'm just about an hour. I don't know what we're doing to the schedule. David may know. Let's keep the schedule. We'll have a short lunch. Our apologies for going over, but we wanted to do as much time as we could. Thank you, folks.